Now we all know that rich property developers usually get the planning permission they're looking for in the end. And we'd all love to live in a beautiful place like this. So how is it then that so much of our coastline here in the UK is still unspoilt and free for us to roam? Well, I've come to one of my favourite coastal landmarks today, and as I enjoy a walk to its summit, I'll explain to you as much as I can about the question I just posed. So hopefully by the end of this video, apart from having enjoyed all the breathtaking scenery I'm going to show you, you'll also have a better appreciation of what goes into the protection of these beautiful lands that we all take for granted. Okay, let's get cracking. If you haven't managed to recognise where we are from the scenery I've shown you just yet, then let me tell you. We are on our way up the Golden Cap. The Golden Cap is in Dorset, it's on the Jurassic coast, and it sits between the towns of West Bay and Lyme Regis. And I've made videos on both of those places, which are pretty good, so you might want to watch those when you finish watching this, of course. We have a wooded bit, which is definitely a good thing in this very hot day that we've got today. Still says 1 mile. Onwards and upwards, as usual. Okay, coming back to the Golden Cap, it's the highest point on the south coast of England, and as part of the Jurassic coast, it's a World Heritage Site. Thing is though, that protected status only came about in 2001, so going back to the question I posed earlier, you've only got to look down to sandbanks not far along the coast from here, and you'll see exactly what could have happened to this coastline had we not got this land protected way before that. So what's the story then? Well, the short answer is that a charitable organisation that bought up all this land with the specific intention of keeping it protected for our benefits. Realistically though, no organisation could undertake such a massive thing without huge public support. So I guess we really have to look back and consider how come we come to care about this land in the first place. For that, it seems to me anyway, we owe a hell of a lot of gratitude to a group of 1930s working class men from Derbyshire and Manchester who took part in what's now become known as the mass trespass. Oh, we've covered a whole quarter of a mile now. The Golden Cap, the highest point on the south coast of England. 3/4 of a mile away. Okay. In those days, vast areas of countryside were owned by the aristocracy, and generally they were kept private and unused apart from the occasional hunting party. But the working class men of the cities of the north were very dirty cities because of the Industrial Revolution. They needed some escape from that at the weekend. And they wanted nothing more than to walk this countryside, but they weren't allowed to. apart from the select few now and then picked by the gamekeepers who patrolled the land to make sure they didn't trespass on it. And so it was in 1932 that some 400 men set off from Derbyshire to walk up Kinder Scout in defiance of the landowners and to protest their right to roam freely. Now, although there was no such law as trespass, 5 of these men were tried in a court and sent to prison. One of the 5 was a man called Benny Rothman, who was one of their leaders. Now, I'll put a link in the description of this video of a great video that tells you the whole story of this, which is very interesting. But I just want to explain that these events in 1932 seem to be what led to an Act of Parliament in 1949 giving ordinary people more access to the land. And then in 1951 to the opening of Britain's first national park, right there in the Peak District where Kinder Scout is. And what followed from that was a massive growth in people's desire to get out into the countryside and enjoy the fresh air. And with that, the growth of things like the Ramblers Association and all these other little bodies that look after different parts of land up and down the country. The golden cap. Now, by this time the National Trust had already started buying up land to protect it. This started in 1949 with the National Land Fund, and almost 20 years later in 1965 they introduced the Project Neptune, which was specifically targeting to buy up land on the coast of Great Britain to protect it, to stay roamable by people and unspoilt. Now this is getting very steep. To date, the National Trust owns over 780 miles of our coastline here in Britain, and I think I'm right in saying over 300 miles of that is right here in the West Country. But the story doesn't end there, because it's one thing to have permission to roam this land, but if it isn't maintained suitably, and if you haven't got suitable signage to tell you where to go, then you'd need a degree in map reading just to get anywhere. And that rules out the likes of me straight away. So who's responsible for the upkeep of all of this then? Well, when we're talking about national parks, there are government authorities for that. But then, when we're talking about National Trust land, 780 miles on the coast, then that's down to charitable donations from the likes of you or me. And the work for that is often undertaken by volunteers. Now, with something like the South West Coast Path, which we're on now, that's a 630-mile long-distance path, and it runs through land owned by so many different people, a lot of it the National Trust, but so many different people and so many different authorities that the upkeep of that is a whole different game. And so another charitable organisation was set up. They're known as the South West Coast Path Association, not surprisingly, and they liaise with all the different other agencies all the way around to make sure there's proper signage, like I said before, to make sure the path is accessible, and they do a lot of good work in that respect. And one thing I should tell you is if you're going to venture out on this path for a short walk or a long walk, it's always a good idea to check the South West Coast Path Association website for any possible diversions. They'll always keep any new diversions that are on the route will be available on their website, so you won't get halfway along a walk and go, we can't get to where we're heading, I'm meant to be catching our bus, because you've checked it. Speaking to someone in my video history, you will see that I haven't always checked it, but it's definitely good advice, as I've learnt the hard way. And if you do like to spend a lot of time out in these places, then I suggest it's a good idea for you maybe to join one of these associations, either the Coast Path Association or the National Trust, and I'll include links to both of those in the description of this video. We don't even have a mileage. What's that all about? Right. Make it look so easy.
Staying at home, turn off the phone, I will listen to you. You lay in the sheets, you hold on to me like I'm already gone, and whisper your words like secrets written in an old moleskin. Look up above, the sunlight seems like it is gonna break in, and something ain't right.
And this is why I chose to come up here for this particular walk. Memorial of Earl of Antrim, who was very instrumental in buying a lot of this land up with the National Trust. Respect where respect is due.
Straighten my shirt, wearing the skirt that my mother gave to you. I come up behind you and kiss on the side of your neck a few. And turn off the
Okay, here's another question for you. If a local landmark building sits on a cliff top, when the land underneath it collapses into the sea, how can that building still be standing? I'll answer that question in the next video, and when I do, I'll link it in the top corner of your screen. In the bottom corner of your screen, I'll link the video to Lyme Regis that I told you about earlier. You know you want it, you know it makes sense. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.